Well, good evening, everybody, and how are we all doing on this lovely Sunday evening? It's the 28th of August, 2021. Hopefully the sound is going through. I checked everything again, but these things do happen when we go live. Now, today we're going to be talking about tool care, something that somebody asked us to cover a few weeks ago. But of course, before that, we'll go through what I've been up to over this last week and what you've been up to. And we'll just see if anybody's out there first as well. So if you are new to the show, you can leave a comment in the comments tab and I should see it on my screen. If you're watching in the Facebook group, I may not necessarily see who you are. So just leave a note saying who you are. That way I can see it a bit better. You can zap yourself in on a link, which I'll add up a little bit later on, where you can call in on 07307 135. I can't remember it now off the top of my head. I'll get it going across the bottom of the screen quickly to see where is it. There we go. So first of all, let's see who we've got out there. Ballycillian, that's me here looking forward to tonight's show. Good evening to you. Philly SPB, good evening to you. Hello to Veggie Grower Army. Not long till the army logs on. It certainly isn't. Who else have we got? Lots of comments. Adrian has joined. Good evening to you. Hope you are well. Let's keep on going. I said good evening myself. We've got a new viewer. Welcome, Alison O'Brien. I hope you are well. She says, good evening, Richard. I'm new to your show. I like getting into my garden and planting and growing my own vegetables and salad. You're a person after my own heart. I absolutely love doing it, and that's pretty much what we try and do every day here. Who else have we got? Stuart Jackson has joined. Good evening to you. Richard Golding has joined. Good evening to you. Turbo Stream, good evening from a sunny Birmingham. First bit of sunshine all week here. As you can probably tell, it's very hot here. You should see some of the videos I've got coming up a little bit later on, which really does show how hot it got. Hargrave Gask, evening all. I'm tuned in from Spain this week. Really missing my plants. You know what? I was thinking earlier, I need a holiday. I'm absolutely cream crackered at the moment, but it ain't going to happen for a while. Amanda Joy, good evening to you. What's Stuart Jackson saying? As my photo showed, I have been picking apples today, also sowing salad and lupins. So that is what Stuart's been up to. Cornish Heaven, afternoon from sunny Cornwall. Good evening to you. Rebecca Hawkins, good evening to you. We've got a little recipe that came in from Rebecca that I've cooked earlier today and we'll be eating live on this stream. Muddy Boots has joined. Good evening to you. I'm hoping I'll be catching up with Muddy Boots in person. First time in over a year. I'll be able to see him on Thursday when we go to Gardener's World Live. Is anybody else going to be going to Gardener's World Live over this it's the end of next week? Looking forward to it. It's be great to go back and get back into seeing people again, won't it? Who else have we got? So Turbo Stream, this week has been mainly tidying the plot and filling the compost bin, not much actual gardening. Well, that's actual gardening in my opinion, so I think that's doing well. Somebody in the Facebook group, unfortunately, as I said earlier, if you're in the Facebook group, I may not see who you are, but they've said hello, Suggs, and good evening to you. Just if you want me to know who you are, just leave your name at the end, and I will have a better idea. So what have I been up to this week? Well, I've got to admit, it's been a bit of a challenge to do anything this week. Not because of the weather for a change. This week has been very, very busy at work. And I've had this headache since, when did I start? Wednesday. It's gone today. First day I haven't had it, but it's been a constant pain in the head. So I haven't done a huge amount. But what I have been doing, I've been down the allotment in the evenings, just clearing out lots and lots of weeds, which feels great to get on top of the weeds again. I think I said last week, I'm kind of wrapping up the allotment for this year in the sense that, not that I'm going to stop using it, I will still use it. I'll be I'm just going into winter a bit earlier. The tomatoes have died back, and I'm just sort of clearing out the old stuff, getting ready to build new beds, getting all the compost and everything ready to go, and just making the most of, or basically doing what I would expect to do over the winter a little bit earlier. That way I can hit the winter already prepared, and come spring I can just hit the ground running and it's all ready to go. And this is purely because the amount of blight we've had this year has really caused lots of problems in our allotment. Now back at home, I have cut off all the branches off the willow tree now, which has just left this large stump, which I'll cut down soon, and that's let in a lot more light. I'm actually really glad I've cleared that out. Around the sub pod, which is my subterranean or underground composting system, I set it up a while ago, but I knew the compost that I put around the sub pod itself in the raised bed that I built would settle down, and it did. It reduced by quite a bit. So I filled that back up, and that means I can start potting it in my grapes. I think we've now got it to the point that it's not going to reduce down so much. And that's used compost out my own compost bin. So that's been a fantastic thing. I've got in the ground some of this Phacelia, which is a new plant I've never grown before. It's growing really well, but I've got it into the ground, and hopefully it's now going to grow better. So that's what I've been up to over this week. Let me know what you have been up to yourselves. So Mr. Skinny Jean Gardner, aka Lee Connolly, has joined. Mr. Suggest, he says, a damn spell checker always happens with me there. And what's Turbo Stream? I'm trying to sort the allotment out for next year from Turbo Stream. I want to make it more low maintenance plot. This year has been a disaster. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. I'm sort of thinking I've got a good idea what I want to do with the allotment now. I've been on there for long enough, but I certainly think that if I can just make it more low maintenance and basically invest the time and get it ready for next year. There's still going to be stuff going into the allotment, of course. There's going to be the onions, overwintering broad beans, overwintering peas, overwintering cabbages. They were still going as normal, but I'm just, where my beds are clear, I'm starting to wrap those up and get those packed away. And that way I think next year I can just hit the ground running. And I think that's the same as what Turbo Stream is saying as well. Mine just started to redden up now, Ian. I missed a comment from Mr. Beddoes, Ian Beddoes. Not picked a single tomato yet this year, as they are still green. Funny enough, I've picked a few tomatoes from the greenhouse, but not as many as usual. Outdoor tomatoes are now pretty much completely wiped out, except a few I've got in pots. But if they are still green, as long as you're not suffering, as long as you're not suffering from blight like I've got, don't worry, they will redden up. Just start to remove some of the lower leaves from your tomato plants, and that should start to encourage them to redden up. And also, what you might find is if you hang something like a banana, that may also help ripen up the tomatoes as well, to start turning them from green to red. A few other tips out there. I'm sure others will start shouting out a few other tips that they find in order to get your tomatoes to ripen. What else have we got? Dave Ford, hello to you. Hope you are well. My freezer is full of runner beans now, and more to come by the looks of it. Makes up for the disaster with the tomatoes with blight. Yeah, runner beans have actually been pretty good this year from what I've seen as well. I've not grown runner beans, but I've grown French beans. We've done quite well with that. Peas have been good this year as well. First really good year for peas, so I'm really, really happy with that. Potatoes have been good despite the blight. But yeah, that's where plenty of freezer space really does come into its own. Feels crazy that it's now almost September and we're talking about closing up for the year. See, this is where I always think that September is the start of the year. That's how I view it anyway. September is when I start to get my garlic in. It's when I start to get my onions in, and I start growing for crops for next year. So I see it, September as the beginning of the growing year. It may not be everyone's the way of looking at it. It's certainly the way I look at it. I will be sowing broad beans for a green manure and for picking up for the young shoots over winter. Yeah, green manure is something I'm definitely growing a lot of this year. Phacelia is one I've used really successfully. Winter tares and winter greens or field beans are also going to be used. And broad bean is probably going to be a good one that fits into. I personally will be growing broad beans. They'll be going out in a supporters pack next month. And that's one that I always grow every year. Growing them over winter, I find gets earlier crops, but also less chance of black fly when it comes to broad beans. But growing them as a green manure, they are, of course, a legume, so they will work at putting nitrogen into the soil. Hey, Richard just arrived from Andrew Norris. Lovely to see you. Rebecca Hawkins, put your tomatoes in a drawer to ripen. So yeah, if you've got green tomatoes, pop them in a drawer, I think with a banana or a banana skin, and that encourages them to ripen because the bananas emit a gas, which is why bananas should be kept in your fruit bowl, because it will cause them to ripen a lot faster. Cornish Haven has planted 14 times 30 litre potato tubs with flowers, cannas, carnations, dahlias, petunias, busy lizzies, strawberry runners, and a black currant cutting that's rooted. Wow, you've been very, very busy. And for those that don't know, Cornish Haven has just moved down to Cornwall, started a new garden was in Brighton, and very, very excited to see what she's doing there. And you know, straight away she's off to a start. She's got the potato tubs ready to go and planted up with a huge amount of plants. You can pick your tomatoes and put them in a paper bag with a banana and put them in the dark, and that will ripen. There you go. And there'll be tips coming in about how to ripen tomatoes. It's one of those common things to happen. Turbo Streams is leaving the runner beans to pot up for dry beans to add to soup and stews. That's another thing I do like to do. I normally grow cannellini beans or ballotti beans for that. Now, today's subject is about tool care. It's something we were asked about a few weeks ago, and it's something that I think we all need to discuss and share a few ideas on. And in view of that, what I've done, I've made a couple of little tips up in video format to play in throughout the show. So let's get the first tip from myself in, and then we can discuss your thoughts on that. So my first tip for tonight's show has got to be, make sure you use the correct tool for the job you're doing. Sounds like a simple one, I know, but I quite often see people using a spade as a hammer, for example. Such an easy one, but do make sure you look after your tools. I forgot that was a bit of a short one, so I didn't hit the button in just enough time. I was busy reading the comments. So yeah, that is my first tip. Always use a tool that is right for the job. As I said in there, I've seen people using a spade as a hammer, and you know what happened? That spade will bend or break, snap into a position, and then end up not becoming a spade, and then you're without the spade. So that was my thoughts on the first tip of that. Let's see if anybody else has any tips that they would like to share. I've got 3 more tips coming up, but I've also had one coming from a listener, or a question or idea from a listener about something. So first of all, Skinny Jean Gardner went to the garden centre today, and a big push on peat-free. Great to see. I know there's a lot of debate about peat-free compost, whether it's any good or not. I've found if you get a good make of peat-free compost, it is very, very good. But that's all open to debate. If Royal Fail ever get around to Veg Army mug, I plan to drink tea. Yep. Turbo Stream has ordered one of our Veg Grower Army. It was posted on Monday, and I've been looking on the tracker today to see where it is. Hasn't been delivered yet. We're keeping a close eye. Cornish Haven, I picked some broad beans and forgot to eat them. Left them on the table outside, and they are starting to shoot. So I'm going to pot them up and replant them. Yeah. Well, next month was when we can start planting broad beans anyway for overwintering. So no worries, keep them planted. Like I say, you get an earlier crop, and I really like earlier broad beans. Some of my best pictures have been hung with a spade. Funny enough, in the nicest way to Lee, when I was thinking of that tip, he was the person I was thinking. Not that I've ever seen him use a spade as a hammer, but I've heard the stories that have came out of that. So yeah, I've only ever wiped down tools and sprayed with WD-40. That's a tip that I've got coming up a bit later on, funny enough. But yeah, wipe down tools after you use them and spray with something like WD-40 does help prolong the life of them. And it's worth doing that if you really want to be a bit finicky about it before you use them as well. Oracle Ard's allotment. Most important tip: watch who you lend the tools to, because they come back in a different condition than when handed over. Very, very true. Very, very true. I think no matter what tool you have, if you lend it to somebody, they never let you use it or never look after it in quite the same way as you would. A tip: try not to leave your tools outside in the rain or in the greenhouse. Pot them in the shed. Yeah, as you can see behind me, all my tools come into this shed when I've finished using them, and they get hanged up there, and that means they get looked after. They're out the rain, they stay dry, and they stay, as you can see, I know where they are. I've got another shed full of my spare tools, or my not so much used tools, which also are hanging up as well for that very same reason. I use 3-in-1 oil. WD-40 drives out too fast. Wait to see what I say a bit later on. I can't remember which tip it is. I need to get on to tool maintenance. I am guilty of just shoving the tools back in the shed. I plan to oil the wooden handles and oil the metal parts when the winter arrives. Yeah, and definitely worth something to talk about. Teak oil on the wooden shafts. I personally use, I'm trying to think if I've got any, what do you call it? Linseed oil. But teak oil is just as good, of course. I take my smaller tools in the house for winter, oil and wrap in kitchen towel, ready for spring. That's a good idea. I've never thought of doing that, partly because I always use my tools throughout the winter anyway, but I think that is a very, very good idea. Another tip: clean tools don't spread diseases. Absolutely, absolutely. And you often hear me say when I'm pruning or something, I'm spraying down my secateurs in between cuts with a disinfectant to make sure that they don't spread disease. Can you get 3-in-1 in a spray? Yes, you can. You definitely can get 3-in-1 in a spray. If you can find Toolstation or Screwfix, somewhere like that will certainly sell it. B&Q probably will as well. A bucket of oily, sharp sand cleans tool easily by plunging them in. Yes, person after my own heart. I think that is going to be tip 3. I'll tell you what, let's get another tip out of the way and then we can come back. Which one? Let's go for this one.
Now my next tip is when you're using a bladed tool such as a hoe, secateurs, keep a sharpening stone on you and just run it across a few times when you're working. It keeps the tool sharper, which means you have to use less work and therefore less likely to break the tool.
I can't actually hear what I said in that one, so I'm not quite sure. Can't remember which one it was. Was it? It was about keeping your tools sharp while using them, and if I remember correctly, wasn't it a file and something? And this brings me up to a question that came in from Amanda, who was talking about secateurs and tips on keeping a secateurs sharp. Now I've got a set of secateurs just here, my favourite ones. Fiskars. Now, normally these actually do, as you can tell, there's a nut, so they do come apart. They're a bit rusty, but they are quite old by now. But what I like to do when I'm using them, because we've only got this one blade here, I like to get a nice file and just run across that blade, just a few swipes like that to keep it sharp. Spray it in WD-40 or 3-in-1 oil quite regularly as well, or plunge it in the sand and also the spring. Now, unfortunately, my wife borrowed these one day and left them outside and didn't tell me, which is why they've gone a bit rusty. But that's all right. We can bring that back to some proper good use again. I should also say, and I kind of hinted on this, because these come apart in the winter, I will take these apart, give them a really good clean. I can change the springs on them. Also get this blade onto an angle grinder to really sharpen it up and clean away all the nicks. That's something I always look for in secateurs, is a pair that come apart nice and easily so that we can strip them down and clean them properly. So where were we with the comments? Turbo Stream has a can of 3-in-1 spray, so yes, you can get it. Rebecca Hawkins, what does everyone think to neighbours sharing tools? Very good if you don't have a big shed to store bulky items. That's a very good point, actually. I think I always say if I borrow a tool from a neighbour, I return it in the way I would expect to get it back. In fact, I probably do it better, to the point a neighbour of mine on the allotment lent me his wheelbarrow one day. And I was shifting some horse manure, and I didn't have a wheelbarrow on the allotment at that time. So when I finished with it, I literally washed out the wheelbarrow, let it dry in the sun before giving it back to him, and he was absolutely chuffed to pieces that I'd done that. He said I didn't need to. It's a wheelbarrow at the end of the day, but I feel that I would expect somebody to do the same for me. Something as simple as just washing it out didn't take long. Just wash out a wheelbarrow when you've finished using it and return it. Nice and easy. You're not you. Oh, was that? Oh, yeah. Hello. No, don't lend. Oh, this is Richard Golding. He doesn't lend tools out. People will never look after them as you would, which I do agree with. But as Rebecca said in this comment, when you have or don't have big sheds to store a lot of the bigger tools, what do you do then? And you've got no option. I just think you've got to set the example, what you would expect yourself, and hopefully that will follow on with everybody else. Ballycillian, when buying your main tools, buy the best you can afford and care for them. Last you a lifetime. I totally agree with that. However, some of my favourite tools have actually came from a car boot, like the Spades behind me. That cost me about £3 from a car boot. It's probably older than me, and it still goes strong. And I love it because I like old tools. I think there's something so much more appealing about the older tools. How old do you think the longest used garden tool is? No idea. No idea. That's a good question. There's probably going to be some old Victorian tools that are still in use in some gardens. Whether they've been restored or not is going to be the question. I'd be interested to know on that. I always wash off forks and spades after use. Yep, fantastic. That's a good tip. I think that'll be something you'll see in tip 3 from me. A round oil stone or diamond file is good for sharpening curved blades, such as on secateurs. Yeah, as Nigel was saying there, this is a curved blade, so a round oil stone or diamond file is best to really get to that. I keep a paintbrush from Stuart Jackson in the greenhouse so I can oil my tools and get into the cracks. Good idea, actually. Didn't think of that. I'm going to have to do that as well. That's a very good idea. Yeah, Trigger's broom. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Trigger's broom comes to mind when it comes to the oldest tool. I say that often, quite that term quite often lately. Felco 2 are good secateurs, expensive but last years if taken care of. Absolutely, yeah. It does all boil down to buying a good make, buy the best you can afford, look after them, and they will look after you. If I were to borrow tools, then I would send it back clean and oiled up, even if it was dirty when I borrowed it. I think that's right. I do think that's right. It's something that I try and do myself. For work, I need my tools at work, and if my tools at work get damaged, I can't earn a living, and I adopt that with everything that we do. I wash my wheelbarrow after moving sheep poo as it can be corrosive. Exactly, that's why I do it as well, especially if it was somebody else's. Yeah, I think that's also very, very wise. Beatrice has joined. Good evening to you. Hope you are well. I have a rake that is at least 50 years old. I suspect that's a similar age to my spade as well. Thought you were going to cut off your finger to show us how sharp you are. No, I'm not going to do that, but I can tell you they are sharp. Good evening, Beatrice. I feel embarrassed that I don't clean my own tools now. LOL. It's a very, very, very silly thing to do. So let's have a quick look at my third little tip video.
Now, when you finish your work for the day, always important to put your tools away, and that is probably one of the biggest ways to prolong the life of your tools. But something I always recommend you do as well is to wipe off all the mud that you might find on your blade, such as on the spade. Now, quite simply, get a stiff brush and give it a brush off when you're finished. Could be as easy as that. But something that I like to do, in my shed, I keep a bucket of sand into which I've poured a load of vegetable oil. Could be old vegetable oil from an old chip pan or something. It's up to you. And when I finish working, I just plunge the tool into that bucket of sand. The sand acts as an abrasive, which wipes away all the mud and keeps all the rust at bay. But also the oil coats the tool in oil, which stops it from rusting a lot quicker. Just my little tip there.
So yeah, this sand and oil suggestion that we've been talking about a bit earlier, I've actually got to add more oil to my sand bucket, I've realised when doing that. But I use vegetable oil, especially if it's old vegetable oil from a chip pan. It does make the shed smell a bit like a chip shop, but it does the job, and it recycles everything is the way I look at it. And this, as I said, the sand acts as an abrasive, so it clears off all that mud, and then it coats the blade in oil. But you do really need a really quite coarse sand and a big bucket. That bucket is a bit too small, if I'm honest. But that's all things that we can think about. And a tip that I've shared many times, and I think is probably the easiest way to look after your tools. Do that one thing: a bucket of sand and oil. Every time you put your tools away in that, and your tools will last a lot longer. Sean James Cameron, I put a hole in the bottom of my wheelbarrow on purpose so it doesn't fill with water. I've got some old wheelbarrows that hole has rusted into. Personally, I turn my wheelbarrow upside down so it doesn't get full of rainwater. I also try and put it in a shed, to be honest, as well, if I can fit it in there. Tools don't have to be new. My wheelbarrow's 3 old dumped wheelbarrows stripped down to the good parts made together to make one good wheelbarrow. Absolutely. Love to see a picture of that. This sort of triggers broom scenario, but I've done the same thing. I've taken old spade handles and put them into new spades and stuff. It just makes life a bit more fun, I guess, recycling things over and over. I always leave my wheelbarrow overturned from muddy boots, absolutely, so it doesn't collect rainwater and start to rust in the pan. Yeah, I mean, I quite like the plastic wheelbarrows these days because it does stop them from rusting. What have we got? Good evening, Richard. What happens if you lend out tools and they get broken, like a shredder? Sorry, this is my dad. Who's broken your shredder? I know I've got my own one. So, well, if they get broken, then I think it's only right that they replace it. That's what I say, in my opinion. thumbs up, please, everyone. Yeah, please do thumbs up. Don't forget, otherwise get told off by Facebook and YouTube, to also like, subscribe, follow, hit the notification so you know when I get live, etc., etc. Otherwise, I get told off. Also use grease for keeping tools rust-free. Yeah, grease, especially on some moving parts like the secateurs. Grease up when I strip these down. Greasing up in these bits will last a lot longer and keep the water out. I have a little piece of string on all my tools so I can hang them up in the shed. Absolutely. And that's what I love about these IKEA things, these pegboards, because I can just hang those on the hook and it's easy to find. What have we got? Jim M. I love the sand and oil tip. We'll definitely be doing that one. Yeah. I've got to say, for me, I read that on a website a few years ago, probably about 15 years ago now, and it just makes so much sense. And I've done it since, and it does really make life a lot easier. I have a stainless steel spade and fork. Is there any advantage in using them over steel conventional ones? I think it's all about the type and the quality of the metal of the spade and the fork itself, and whether it will stand up the test of time. If it's the handle, I personally prefer wooden handles, and that'll come up in my final tip. But if it's worth just making sure you get rid of all the rust. Even stainless steel will rust if it is given a chance. I might even throw a wire brush into the bucket. If it's there, you're more likely to use it. So that's a very good thing, I think. Great tip. I will have to try this. I must admit, I'm not very good at looking after my tools. This is where the sand and oil just works, because it's there. It's there. You put your tool away and it's there. Turbo Stream's wheelbarrow does live in a shed along with the other tools. However, I've redeemed myself. Yeah, he's made himself rather pleased with that. Good to see you yesterday. Yes, we were out on a walk yesterday and Sean was there, and I don't know if Ed Loud is watching. He was there, and a few others that are possibly watching tonight on a walk with the Board Explorer. And good to see you too. Most of my tools are made of wood. Well, that actually brings me quite nicely into tip 4.
Now, another thing that it's worth mentioning, once a year, particularly during the winter when we're less likely to use the tools, I like to get all my tools out and get the angle grinder on all the blades and give them all a good sharp, clear away any nicks. But most of my tools have wooden handles. I much prefer wooden handles over steel or plastic. Just before the feel of it in my hand, to be honest. But what I like to do is get some linseed oil and rub it onto all the handles and the shafts once a year. Gives those handles a good soaking and prolongs the life of these wooden handles. Now, that's okay if you've got wooden handles, of course. If you do have a metal handle, it's worth just checking over your shafts, clear away any rust with a bit of emery cloth or sandpaper, and give it a lick of paint every now and then as well. Again, just goes on to making sure your tools last a little bit longer.
It's getting really hot in here now. It's a hot day. Probably the only day of summer we're going to have this year. Richard, I meant, does one work better than the other? Oh, this is steel versus stainless steel. I don't really know, to be honest. I think stainless steel will probably last longer in theory. It will still rust, but it will probably take a lot longer to rust. So, yeah, we'll see if anybody else has any thoughts on what is the best metal for spades and forks. David Mosley, I like to use Genelite thick liquid rust remover, as you can paint it onto the rust and it works like magic. Yeah, that's something that I've actually used a few times and stuff like that to clear away a lot of the rust, especially even on my car. It just clears away the rust and gets gets rid of it really really nicely. And also on new spades. But I do find some makes of rust removal work better than others. So it's worth trying to find the right one if you are doing that. Again, I think if it's not a heavy rust, nice bit of sandpaper or something, just get rid of the rust. And then I know some people will actually paint the metal parts of their tools as well over winter in order to make sure they last. Personally, I don't do that. I prefer just to use oil. I've added the link if you want to zap in the comments. If you're watching in the Facebook group, you may not see the comment that's came up from me with it. But if you go to the Facebook page or the YouTube channel, you will see it. It's weird how Facebook works with groups sometimes. I really need to sort this studio out a bit better. Again, one of my lights is around the camera is in the way of the comments sometimes, so I have to lean in and out to see what's going on. Oracle, coming from a building background, diesel is the best to use on wood. I've never even thought about using diesel, but I would be worried to use it, to be honest. But that's I try not to use anything that isn't entirely natural or what have you. Grow Veg UK, stainless is much weaker. So there you go. That's something I thought we might find out about this. And Muddy Boots, stainless steel for me, less sticky when the soil is damp or clay. And Stuart Jackson, most of my modern tools have metal handles. Is this better than wooden handles? Personally, I prefer wooden handles purely because I think the wood sort of molds into the shape of your hand as you use it, and it becomes more and more comfortable. That's why I prefer metal handles. Wooden handles, sorry. I find metal handles, after a while, they will get rust, even if they're painted. They can get a bit rough in your hands, could possibly even cut your hands. So personally, I prefer the use of metal or the use of wooden handles. And also it's easier, I think, to look after wooden handles. So like I say, once a year I'll rub down the handles with a bit of sandpaper, make sure they're all nice and smooth, and then rub in some linseed oil, which I've got here in a rather poor looking unlabeled bottle. That'll be finished this year. That bottle will be finished this year. I probably will have to get some more of it at some point as well. Knowledge Quest had to put the allotment committee and council on notice, and they're in the process of taking them in the court for bullying and negligence of. Oh, there's a story here. I think we need to find out more about this story, Knowledge Quest. So that'd be interesting to find out a bit more. Right, so tools. What else does anybody else do to take care of their tools? Anything particularly special? Anything really makes you, or anything that we haven't really discussed or shared about today? One of my other, I guess, gripes I have with a certain type of tool is hose pipes and the plastic, the plastic connectors. I personally have now converted all over onto metal connectors because I find those plastics, not I use a hose pipe that often, but when they get cold, they have a tendency then to get cracked, or you might be running them across the ground and they get scratched and then broken and split. I guess when it comes to tools, I class hose pipe as a tool. This becomes the point where it's a what do you call it? An adjustment that I guess what we said earlier, buy the best that you can afford. I'd sooner, they are a bit more expensive, I'd sooner buy the metal adapters, the metal clicks. I can't think what they're properly called, as opposed to those plastic ones. Those plastic ones are just rubbish, I think. I also find the metal ones flow easier. My hose pipe is one of the hose lock ones that you wind up and attached to the side of a building. You wind it closed, and that winding procedure has a tendency with the plastic ones to to twist and cause them to split. Whereas the metal ones have a tendency to move the whole thing round, almost like they got ball bearings in them. So they twist a lot better like that. What else? Don't forget, if you want to call in, the number is 07307 135 174. I've added that again in the comments if you want to see that out. What other tips? What other things do I tend to do with my tools when it comes to using or looking after them? Always put them away. I once left a pair of choppers on the allotment, and I didn't put them away when I finished using them. I put them down and lost them. And about a year later, I found them when I was emptying out my compost bin. They'd somehow landed in the compost bin. They got full, and they came out very, very rusty. Really, really rusty. They struggled to come apart. They would struggle to use after that. I mean, I spent a bit of time sanding them down, oiling them back up, got them back up and working, and that seemed to work very, very well. So yeah, my leaving tools out is a big no-no in my opinion. And Rebecca Hawkins has gone on to say, I think we are all guilty of leaving the odd tool out. We all are guilty of that. I tell you what, I'm going to bring in, which one is it? We spoke about this last week. I was sent a recipe by Rebecca for courgette, onion and carrot cake. Courgette, orange and carrot cake, sorry. Let's quickly play that and we'll come back and see how that turned out. Right, we are back, and during that we had a phone call come in. So this is Knowledge Quest, if I'm not mistaken, and you've got a story to share with us.
Yes, what it is, I took on an allotment pot in July last year, and they actually refused to give me a tenancy agreement. Now, they blamed it on the C word,
Yeah.
And there's a reason they couldn't give me the paperwork.
Right.
Yet they could take the money off me for the membership and the key. They could sell me some tools and take the money off me as well, which is rather suspicious. It turns out that they co-conspired with another tenant there, that they'll find some patsy to clear off the plot, which is totally riddled with rubbish and overgrowth and whatnot. They left it overgrown for over 6 months, man. from what I can gather, from other people have told me.
Yeah.
Now, so what they've done then is on the in March this year, which goes against the rules of the council because of the C word, the last couple of years, and their own rules, which they've done a plot inspection in March, which they shouldn't have done a plot inspection anyway, because it doesn't start until April.
Yeah.
So they've done all this figuring, and when I challenged them on it, they got very, very verbally aggressive. I got it all on video.
Right, excellent. That covers you then.
Yeah, and then they tried to turn around and say, "Oh, you can't have a camera on the site, this, that, and the other." No, it's a council-owned allotment site.
Yeah.
And there was nothing ever mentioned about not allowed to have cameras. Just because I use a body-worn camera as opposed to a camera on my phone, I'm the only one that's not allowed to have a camera on that site. They've even admitted, which I've got them on video, they make their own laws up on that site.
Yeah.
When you go through the thing, it's what they call a devolved association.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, which basically means delegated. So the council is delegated to an overseeing committee to oversee this committee. Now, the two committees have got family members in there, which falls foul of the Companies Act 2006, a duty to make sure there's no conflict of interest.
Yeah.
This is how come they've been able to get away with it, because their complaints procedure is any complaints about that committee, you've got to give to the secretary of that committee, which then passes it on to the overseeing committee, which has not been done. And what they've been doing is opening the letters up themselves and replying and making out that they're from the overseeing committee.
Right. Yeah. So
we've been to the national, because on the council website it says we are members of the National Association of Allotments and Leisure Gardens. So we went to them. They turned around and said they can see no basis for any eviction. They went to the council. The council said, well, we're dealing with it. Well, the council was not dealing with it. But that's what they told them, just to fob them off. So I've now had to go through common law and give them notices to cease and desist, which they've ignored with impunity.
Right.
We just recently had the police there last week and said nobody's to go on the plot at all until it's all resolved. Yet the tenant that stole the plot went back on it the following day.
Right. Yeah.
And then so I ended up going through another process of notices. Now it's just having to go to court and go from there. It just goes to show how corrupt the councils and these devolved committees are.
Yeah.
In some aspects.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, we not that I'm going to say there's anything wrong with what you're saying. We obviously haven't heard their side of the story, but it sounds to me like some of these committee or the people in your allotments they want everything their own way. Almost. Yeah. And you've been made to suffer for that, from what you're saying. Yeah. So hopefully everyone arguing or people on your side and arguing for it will work out in your favour and you end up back with your allotment. Yeah. So fingers crossed for you.
It's this is the thing. It's and because of it now, because the police confirmed it's common law jurisdiction.
Yeah.
I'm actually putting in to take the land off the council. Because them members of the committee have actually admitted being there over 40 years.
Right. Wow.
So they've just got so stagnant in their ways, and they're not willing to budge on anything. There's no compromise with them. When they turned around and said in their letters that you can appeal it, and we'll make it the suitable date and time for you to appeal, and then they turned around and said, we can only do it on a Saturday or Sunday. We can't do it any other day. You know, It's like, that's not convenient at all, you know?
No. But you've got the National Allotment Association on yours, or contacted them to get their advice Is it National Allotment Association?
Yeah.
Yeah, so hopefully they're going to argue your case and give you more, certainly I think more information or more than what I know about this legal side of things.
Well, it turns out that even though it says on the council website that we're members of the National Association of Allotment and Leisure Gardens, it turns out that we're not. And that was in a document that they got on their website from 2013. So they haven't amended it. So I haven't found out when the change has been taking place.
Right. So, something very fishy going on, isn't there?
Yes. So I think what it is, they're telling people they're doing that. I think, it could be in a way to get extra money. You're saying that money is being going to the National Association of Allotments and Leisure Gardens when it's actually not.
Yeah. And I believe if you're paying in, you get certain things like insurance with the National Allotment Association, which if you're led to believe that's what you're paying for, and not getting. You may have opened a can of worms for them, which they didn't want to go through.
This is it. It's the thing is, from what I can gather up there, they've picked on so many people over the years, but they've not had anybody like myself that'll stand and fight them to the death, so to speak.
Yeah, well, that's very, very interesting. All I can really say is good luck, and I hope you win.
Oh, good, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah,
at the end of the day, the way I look at it, they picked on me. It's fair game. But the thing is, there's people up there that's worse off than me. We've got the elderly people, we've got people that's that's disabled and whatnot. And like somebody said to me about 2 weeks ago, when they finish picking on me, who are they going to pick on next?
Exactly, absolutely right. Yeah, that's why it needs sorting out, and especially if they're doing things. That's
the trouble with some people. See, they just haven't got the willpower to be able to take these on board, and they just say, right, we just can't be bothered with it or whatever.
Yeah,
and it's like, it's taking me to have to step in and do this. I don't know whether that's a calling in life or not. I don't know.
No, well, hopefully it'll go your way. That's all we can say. But at least you are battling it and doing the best. You will keep us informed as to what happens, won't you?
I will indeed.
Fantastic.
Because it's very, very interesting at the moment. I've got an appointment to see somebody now on Tuesday in respect of sorting the paperwork out for getting the court. So that's the hardest part, is because I went to my local magistrate's court to see about some paperwork, and he goes, "Oh, we haven't got no paperwork. You have to go to the Citizens Advice." Well, the Citizens Advice Bureau locally now is closed down, so where do we go?
Yeah.
Yeah. But for anybody, for your listeners, there's a place called the Support Through Court. Just search through those 3 words, Support Through Court. They're a charity that helps do it free.
Right.
They don't just help you whether to get into court, they'll help you through the whole process of it. Even as far as when you're sat there in front of the judge, they'll take the notes for you.
Fantastic. Can you put that website in the comments so we can all see it?
I will do.
Lovely. Thank you very much. That'd be useful.
And if I remember correctly, there's a video, one of the videos up on my YouTube channel.
Yeah, well, add that up as well, and everyone will see it and check it out to show you some support.
Okay, I know I put 2 videos up on my BitTube. I can't remember if I put them up on my YouTube as yet.
Right, yeah. Well, we'll send everyone to check out your channel if they want to find out more.
Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. You're welcome, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to voice us on here with you.
Yeah, that's always welcome. I'm always happy to hear people's stories.
Absolutely.
All right, buddy. Well, keep us informed, and you take care.
Okay, and you. Cheers for that.
Cheers. Thank you. Bye. There we go. That was a bit of a interesting story going on there. Who was it? I saw some of these. Where was it? I saw somebody say, Turbo Stream. Some of these committees, exactly. But Ian Beddoes also wants to keep updated on the story. So hopefully we will find that out. Anyway, before that, I showed you the cooking video of this courgette, carrot, and orange cake. Now, I've got to say, when I rushed to cook that today, to be honest, the recipe was slightly different that I was sent. Use the same materials, but as you said, to spread the recipe between 2 cake tins and to do a frosting. I'm trying to eat less sugar, so I didn't do the frosting, but I've just done the cake, and I want to see just how good this tastes. Oh, wow. That is really nice, real nice. Like the orange zest complements the courgette and the carrot. Really, really nice. And I don't know if you can see. You can just see little bits of courgette and even carrot mixed in there. It's delicious. Really nice. Absolutely lovely. Thank you very much, Rebecca, for that recipe. It was delicious. That is a definite a positive from my point of view. Yeah, tasty. So Beatrice says that sounds like a nightmare situation. It does sound like a nightmare situation. Hopefully it will get sorted out and sort it. Glad you like it. 2 of your 5 a day. Yeah, it's delicious, Rebecca. Really, really nice. The orange, I've got to say, the orange really works with the courgette and the carrot to complement it really nicely. Something I'm definitely going to make again. Apologies, Rebecca, I didn't follow your exact recipe. I didn't do the there should be like a icing sugar and orange juice over the top for the icing, but because I'm just trying to eat a little bit less sugar, I just figured I'll admit that. Cake looks lovely, but I'm on a sugar-free challenge at the moment, but might try it in the future. Yeah, I'm trying to eat less sugar. I don't eat a huge amount of sugar sometimes, but I don't have a very sweet tooth. But when I do, I've got to the point I don't really like sugar anymore. Stuart Jackson, every week is different on this show. Good luck with the case. It certainly is. I didn't expect that in the slightest, but this is where you never know what's going to happen. If you want to zap in, I'll pop the link up again. Cake looks nice from Turbo Stream. It tastes nice. Digwell has had to go. Catch you next week, guys. You take care. We'll see you again next week. And Richard Vobes has joined. Good evening to you. I'm going right back right back on the comments to find out where were we. I thought you were going to say they were stolen. That was my I want to call them secateurs, but that's not what I mean. Choppers. These things. Choppers that I accidentally left in or found in my compost bin. Now, they weren't stolen. They were just rusty as anything. I have lost good hand trowel somewhere on the plot, annoyed as it's my favourite tool to use. And Nigel Muddy Boots has said, I add yellow tape or spray paint to some of my tools so I can see them more easily when I misplace them. That's not a bad idea. Again, that's why I quite like... Where are they? Where did I pop them? Here. That's why I quite like these ones, because the orange handles do really stick out. Made by Fiskars. They do stick out, and there's nothing really on the allotment that is going to be orange. Insulate your outdoor taps. If you look on your water provider site, they give away kits for free. So yeah, that's a very good way if you want to make it last. Richard Vobes is saying wine gums. Yeah, that is my my Achilles heel. I do like wine gums, but is there one person out there who I'm sure doesn't eat much sugar? This guy. Hello, mate.
Hello, Rich. Oh, I eat loads of sugar, mate. Loads.
Oh,
yeah. Cake's good for you, especially if it's got vegetables in it.
as long as it's got vegetables on it. Yeah, I mean, I don't eat much. Wife does bake cakes from time to time, but I don't eat a huge amount of cakes or sugar, except for wine gums. That is always my folly. But yeah.
I'm not good for sugar. I should do what you do, just reduce it a little bit. But never mind. Anyway, this is an interesting show tonight, isn't it?
It's going ways I never thought it would, but that's always the advantage with this show, is that it does turn up anything. I have one subject which we go through, and I think we've really done quite well in finding out tool care.
Yeah, well, I got one question, and I did put it in the comments, but other things took over. Does anybody out there still burn the handles out? You know, when the handle breaks, do you still burn it out, or do you just replace the whole thing? Because I can remember my dad chucking a spade on the fire to get the wood out, to then put a new handle in. Yeah.
Now, personally, when I've had to do that, I have burnt the handles out to try and remove it. But what you've got to be careful when you do that is that the fire doesn't get too hot, because it can cause the metal to go brittle. So when you use it, it can snap.
Yeah.
So you've got to be a bit careful with that. But I burn what's left in the shaft out, because you can never get it out. No matter what you do, you can never get that out.
No.
No.
I've got a few old tools, but I don't. It's like, if I break the handle, do I then replace it, or do I just get a new handle? It's so hard to get tool handles. Mm-hmm. It's not like for spades and stuff, it's fine. But you get a hoe handle.
Yeah. Best place I found to go. Well, the best place I found to go for those sort of things are the old-fashioned hardware stores in towns and villages. They tend to sell those sort of things. The garden centres, the B&Qs don't. You can get them on Amazon as well. That's another place to look, Amazon or online. But I've got to say, in retrospect, sometimes replacing handles is more expensive than buying the whole tool.
Yeah, a lot of my modern tools are a company that you snap together.
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about. It begins with the W. I don't like advertising because it's not fair. But that's fine, and they got good guarantees on their stuff. But I inherited stuff from my dad, and I still like to use that old stuff.
Yeah.
And it does sometimes you think, it's getting a bit old. Do I need to replace the handle? But it's just it'll go when it goes, and then I'll see if I can get the old bit out.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's why I often do add linseed oil quite regularly, once a year, to my handles, because they do last longer and less likely to snap if you do that with them and look after them.
I think that's what I was going to have to do. Start oiling the handles as well as the metalwork.
Yeah. Now, some of the rivets that they use when they build these things together are actually like they get them really hot and then they hammer them. So the only way you can take those apart is with an angle grinder.
Yeah.
But whenever I have to replace a handle, I end up using a nut and bolt, drill right through it. That way, each year I can take that handle and the tool apart, and I can really get linseed oil into the shaft that goes inside the tool. Which
I think that's my next purchase then, some linseed oil.
Linseed oil, again, hardware shop. Yeah.
Okay.
But you are right. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's all right. No, carry on, Rich. Carry on.
I was going to say, you are right. Most places don't really sell the replacement handles anymore. I guess because it's not worth it for them.
No, probably not. I just find myself as a guilty party is leaving a tool. I can see a tool led up against the tree at the bottom of my garden. That's very naughty.
Yeah, very naughty.
But it proves I've been working. Yeah, it's only a hoe. It's okay. It can manage. It can wait another hour until the show's finished. Anyway. I'm sort of listening to the guy before. I'm just thinking, if he did, it's just amazing that people just give up. They, like you said, people haven't got the stamina to keep going against these allotments. Around here, I know it's very political. The allotments are very political. If your face don't fit, you're not, you're the one that gets the letter for too many weeds, or, you've not been to the allotment often enough. And so I think some of them are rather sort of run by an old boys network rather than a committee.
I think you're possibly right there. I mean, there are some good committees out there who do understand what it's like, and but at the same time, they've got to be seen to be doing the right thing as well. Nobody wants that allotment with weeds that are putting seeds everywhere and onto other allotments when there's a waiting list for people. So there's a very fine line, and it's not. I know some people in the audience are committee members. It's not an easy job to do, being a committee member, but at the same time, there's got to be a bit of fairness, and I think it was Knowledge Quest who was having this problem. One of the things that it sounded like to me is that they didn't know what the left hand didn't know what the right hand was doing.
Yeah. I think if you're a new allotmenteer, I think you've got to do your research beforehand. If you can, while you're on that waiting list, do your research, or get yourself on a couple of waiting lists and do the research and pick what's best for you, really, I think. Because I know there are brilliant allotments out there, and it's like if it's a sport committee or whatever, you have good committees and you have bad committees, and it's the way it is. But people forget as well that people give their time up to go on these committees, and a lot of the time the people happen to be, we need a secretary. Oh, you're good with money, you can do it. I know they're voted on, but they're very, very often coerced into doing that job. It'd only be 2 hours a week or 2 hours a month, and it ends up being a lot bigger than that. So I think we've got to have a look from their perspective as well, because it's not an easy job.
Well, that's why I said there's two sides to the story. We've only got, and I'm not saying that Knowledge Quest is saying anything wrong. It's just we've got to hear their perspective really as well. Ooh.
Yeah, let's hope he gets through it and comes out the other end.
Fingers crossed for the guy. I see he's still in the chat, and he says, "Old Boys Network is spot on, to be honest."
I think there are, as like I said, there are really good allotment societies and poor ones, the same as everything else. And sometimes it just takes one person to stand up against them, and that what makes the change. And sometimes it will change for the better in the end. It's just don't give in. If you're right, don't give in. So.
Well, I think in fairness, some people can't be bothered because they got better things to do in their life.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
So
anyway, I will leave you with that, and then now I know that I'm not the only person that's going to be burning a handle this autumn. So
well, I still do it.
Yeah, good. Anyway, I will see you next week, Rich.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you very much, Stuart. Right. Take care.
Take care.
There we go. Let's get Stuart out of here. There we go. That was lovely to hear from Stuart this evening, wasn't it? So can't work out if he's gone or not. I'll kick him. I can kick people from the studio, the guests. I mean, quite a few comments coming during that as well. Where were we? Great idea, Muddy Boots, to put in a bit of yellow tape or making the handles stand out a bit more to your tools, which I think is a great idea. Turbo Stream is saying, you mentioned buying tools at car boots. I always worry that might be stolen from the allotments. It's a big city like that. That is always a possibility. They might be stolen from an allotment. You don't know. But at the same time, there's a good chance they're not stolen from an allotment. I don't know. the most people I know who could do car boots are genuinely selling their old stuff that they just want to get rid of. The boiler's packed up or saying they're trying to get a few quid to pay for that. And they haven't stolen it. But there is a chance, of course. I think we have found Murdoch in Stuart. Yeah, Murdoch. Hannibal and the A-team, as we said. Old-fashioned hardware stores are thin on the ground in Birmingham now, sadly. Yeah, I don't think we've got any in my town anymore. But they are very, very thin on the ground. Reminds me of the 2 Ronnies and 4 Candles. Yeah, that's a very old sketch now, isn't it? Long before my time. What else have we got? I have known folk drill out the remnants of broken handles. Yes, I've known people to drill out. And that was another way I was thinking. But because they tend to taper down at the end, it's not so easy to get what's right at the end. Evening, Richard, from Ernie Samat. Hello to you. Hope you are well. Trust you are well. Apparently we're expecting an Indian summer that's coming from Africa. That's pretty much every continent covered, isn't it? Africa, Asia, and Europe. It certainly feels very warm today. I hope this warm weather stays. I really hope Thursday is going to be a nice day because Gardener's World Live up at the NEC in Birmingham I'm off to. Looking forward to that. A nice proper day out. Looking forward to it. My father had old-fashioned hardware store and sold bits and pieces separately and not in blister packs. There are a few around in some towns and some little villages, but they are very, very rare these days. I feel lucky to have found a really nice allotment site friendly committee too. Yeah, most allotment sites are pretty good, but there's always that bad one, and I do hear the stories that comes in. I've said that one already. Robert Balesford, I've seen a video of a hardware store that sells fork handles. I do know of a few that do sell fork handles, but they are very rare. To be honest, you can get them on Amazon as well, but the price of them, it does make you think, is it worth it? Sometimes I feel sorry for allotment committees. The people complaining don't turn up at an AGM meeting to vote or put their name. Yeah, it's a very difficult thing to get the balance right, of course, and there's a million and ones, coulda, shoulda, wouldas, etc., etc. Ian Beddoes, Robert, that was a proper shop, absolutely. I am just about to leave a committee in a small snooker club. We are a great committee, so I see it from both sides. A lot of committee members work really hard for no thanks or reward. Yeah, it's true, and I don't want to get on the wrong side of anybody out there who is a committee member. You could be doing it exactly the right way for all I know, and you're doing the right thing. But then there are some difficult ones out there as well. I have heard a lot of stories about difficult ones. My local hardware store is selling up this year. I think there's a lot selling up at the moment. It's a great shame. Oh, great, Richard. Me too. The weather is looking great for the show. What day are you going, Rebecca? If you're going to Gardener's World, are you going? I'm going on Thursday. If you are going, let me know. I think you should turn the heating down in this shed. You're looking hot. I keep saying I'm going to install air conditioning in this shed. One day I will. A mix of petrol and old engine oil preserves tools and fences. The petrol helps the oil soak in till it evaporates. Wow, there we go. Rebecca's going on Thursday, same day as me. If you see me, please do come up and say hello. I will have a microphone in hand. I will have a camera around my neck. Please do come up and say hello. It'd be lovely to meet you. Are you going to interview Muddy Boots at the show if you have time? I'm certainly going to be chatting to Muddy Boots. We'll probably do some recording together. He's been on the podcast many times before, but I will certainly be chatting to Nigel anyway. It's like being on a parish council. Sometimes you think you are the only one there. I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that at all. Again, it's not something I've had any experience, nothing I've got involved in myself. But I do want to be fair to any committee members that are out there. Should we have a look at some photos that have been sent in? This is quite late on even for the show, but we've had so much to get through today. Now, first of all, this has been from Turbo Stream, or Adrian, who's in the the group tonight. And this is obviously his compost bin that he said he's been busy filling this week. Only a few things harvested, he says. These beans, which look absolutely wonderful. And those purple ones, I bet, are purple TP. Let me know if I'm correct with that variety. Excuse me, with that variety. And again, the front of his compost heap filled up with the leaves that he's been collecting this week. Now, Stuart Jackson mentioned earlier that he's been harvesting lots of apples from his trees that he's been turning into compost. And as you can see, the remnants of all this apple that he's been making into apple crumble is there in his bowl, ready for the compost. Which brings me up nicely to say that I think next week we're probably going to be doing a compost or share your composting tips. He also put this up in the comments or in the Facebook group about, I think it was Sainsbury's selling off bags of multi-purpose compost at £2 a bag. It's not peat free, but if you are after some cheap compost, it's probably the way to go. This came in from Stuart Reynolds, who's harvested his onions and he's very happy with his onions. Got to say, they look fantastic. I've found that the spring sown onions have done really well this year. And we've got a sensible one from Ian Beddoes for a change. Love you, Ian. This is his granddaughter with some carrots that they've harvested from the garden. Looks fantastic and tasty. Best of all, it's great to see kids getting into some fresh harvested food and seeing where their food comes from. Looking forward to next week's show already. Yeah, I think we'll do about composting. It was one I came up with earlier today. I know we've got lots of things in the pipeline as well, but composting. So if you've got pictures of your compost heaps, please do send them in. Or if you've got any particular styles or anything like that, you want to send your videos in, please do send that in. I think it'll be a lot of fun. And more importantly, I think it's important to get more people composting and the tips that go out there to make life easier. It's the minority that spoils it for majority, no matter what walk of life one is in. I totally agree with that. Rebecca is saying, I promise I will keep my eyes peeled. Looking forward to seeing Lisa Marie's garden. I'm too. I did yours and Lisa's chili grow along. Yes, I'm looking forward to Lisa Marie. I'm not going to pronounce her surname. You see her on Instagram. She's been on the podcast. She's actually been on this show as well. She's got show garden as well. Looking forward to seeing that as well. Chat to Lisa. It's just going to be nice to see everybody again, you know. And the purple, I got it wrong. They're a dwarf variety called Mystic. I got it wrong. I thought they were purple TP. Going to do spuds this week with Heather. Excellent. I think Heather is your granddaughter. So get more pictures, please, Ian. Onions and parsnips have been disappointing to Adrian. I've got to say, my overwintered onions were disappointing. They were okay. They just weren't as good as normal. But the ones that I sown in spring, they've done really well. I think actually I sowed the onions on Christmas Day or from seed, and I normally don't have much luck growing from seed. This year, they've done really, really well. So I'm very, very, very happy with that. So yes, we have got 10 minutes to go. So if you want to call in, I'll pop the number is 07307 135 174. Just to finish the show off, or if you want to zap yourself in, I'll add the link in the chat right now as well. I've got new equipment here, which is making my life a hell of a lot easier. There we go. So what have we got coming up on the podcast tomorrow? What was I doing? I think I've said earlier, I'm going to be reflecting on what I've learned over this last year, because I always feel September is the beginning of the growing season. So I've had a year where I can reflect back on what I've done over this last growing season and what I would change and what I would do. And that is what I'm going to be talking about on the podcast tomorrow. Next Sunday it's going to be all about composting, like I said earlier, so I won't go too much into that. Yeah, I've got to find a recipe as well, of course. Anybody got any suggestions for a good recipe that we can cook up for next week's show? Turbo Stream, I surprised myself with the onions from seed. I sowed in April after failed Christmas sowing. Yeah, this is the thing. I've surprised myself with the onions from seed. Normally, I have very little luck with onions from seed, which is why I normally grow mine from sets. But this year it has worked, and I think what I did differently is I didn't have them hanging around. I was constantly potting them on, getting them into bigger and bigger pots before they finally went out. And when they did go out, they were in really well composted, well manured areas. They seem to do really, really well. So I'm definitely going to be following that on from next year. Excuse me while I have a nice swig of this, and I'm going to have another bite of this delicious cake. That's probably my favorite cake now. It's so tasty. Sorry, I should eat with my mouth full. That is probably my favorite cake. It is so tasty. When do you order new seeds? September. Well, I tend to always have lots of seeds because I buy magazines throughout the year. I tend to use a lot of those seeds up. But September is when I start to think what I want to grow next year. So I'll start writing down lists of what I need. I go for my seed boxes and work it out from that. Obviously, things like garlic and onions, I will buy those in September. I try and go to a garden centre still. I might order them online, but I still like to use a garden centre. And of course, the Seed Supporters Club, the Veg Grow Podcast Supporters Club, the seeds that go out in there each month, I order those on a monthly basis so we can make sure we get them and send them out. I don't like having seeds hanging around for long periods of time. But September is definitely when I start thinking, what do I want to grow next year? What do I need to make sure I got in place? And then in those, when the seed catalogs start coming out about November, December time, I've already got a good idea and I can browse through those and get that ready to go. I'll have to take some photos of the rhubarb. Just don't shout about all the weeds working down the other end of the garden. We don't judge here. If you've got weeds, fine. Doesn't matter. We just want to see what you've grown yourself. This year I sowed everything too early. Next year I'll sow a lot later on in the spring outside. Yeah, this is a tough one for me. I always prefer to grow or start my seeds off indoors. I do tend to do things earlier than I should, but that's because I know when late spring comes around, I get busier at work, so I don't have as much time. So I try and get everything done in advance so I'm ready to go. Something I seem to say a lot at the moment is ready to go. So I don't mind doing things early, but it does mean you have things hanging around for a bit longer, and you do have to really think ahead on how it's going to go into place. Could I plant supermarket garlic? You could. You really want organic if you're buying it from a supermarket, but it's not advised. A lot of people have had a lot of luck just planting cloves from supermarket garlic. But to be honest, you can go to a garden centre, buy a few cloves or buy a few bulbs and plant those. And then just save some of the bulbs for next year. Save the biggest bulb to plant again next year. Rebecca, I'm challenging myself with winter this year. I've not done much growing for winter, to be honest. I've always grown throughout the winter. You can't grow as much, obviously, but there's certainly lots that we can grow, particularly at home. Not so much on the allotment. The allotment gets a bit colder, a bit harder to work in throughout the winter, which is why I tend to do a lot of my infrastructure work over the winter. But certainly at home, it's easy to grow salads. It's easy to grow, I don't know, cabbages and brassicas and just go out and harvest them. You know, even carrots and things can be grown if you know the right timing and you can look after them. Cloches, obviously, and netting to make sure you trap some of that warmth. Yeah, weeds are a crop of compost material, in my opinion. I agree, except for couch grass, because it's so difficult to keep on top of. Weeds are plants that are not wanted. Well, unless you want it for compost material, as Turbo Stream says. A bit of a debate there, isn't it? Breaking my heart, still getting offers emailed to me from various companies, but nothing can get sent to us here in Belfast. Yeah, it's a tough one, Northern Ireland. I've got to look into it, because I think I can send seeds from my supporters club to you guys, because you're not buying the seeds, but at the same time, it's a difficult one because I don't want to break any laws. I certainly don't want to get into trouble. I'm going to look into that for you, Ballysilly, and I'll come back with an answer for you next week and see what we can do to try and make your life a bit easier and better for you. I have no space to have plants hanging around. No greenhouse, yeah. Greenhouse, I've got to say, greenhouse does make life a lot easier, especially over winter, or even cloches and stuff. If you can get those, it'd make life a lot easier and certainly get an earlier start. But not everybody has those. People always say don't purchase potatoes from supermarkets. That is true, but I also know people who have planted potatoes from supermarkets, and they've worked out quite well. Weeds attract native pollinators. Yeah, well, weeds are possibly wild plants, so there's pros and cons, is the way I look at it. Pros and cons. I don't mind a few weeds, and if they're in people's gardens, it's not my place to judge. I've certainly got weeds. If that's true, Richard, let us know. We'll do. I will check on that. I will find out all the laws and what we can do to try and get some seeds to you guys in Northern Ireland, because I feel so bad for you guys out there who have struggled to get any seeds. Right, guys, we're coming to the end of this week's show. What have we learned? Well, we've learned that tools need a lot of looking after, and the bucket of sand and oil seems to be a very popular choice in order to look after your tools. Added to that, we've learned that to replace handles and spades and forks, you need to burn the wood out from the inside. And to add little bits of tape or spray your handles in bright colours, so if you lay them down, they can still be seen. I think that kind of summarises the tool chat. We've had Knowledge Quest with his dilemma or his predicament that he's in and shared with us, and we're going to be looking forward to hearing more about that in the future, so we can find out and see just how he gets on with the committee there. Excuse me. Before we wrap up, let's just clear off some of these comments that are coming in. Is Amanda doing a cake next week? I don't know if we're going to do cake. I might try and do something a bit different. I've just got to find a good recipe from what we've got available. We'll figure something out. Bye, everyone. See you next week. We'll see you again, Turbo Stream. Lovely, and always. Bye. Another great show from Ballysilly. Great sharing of advice. That's what it's all about. Good night, and see you all next week. Thank you, Richard. Much appreciated. Beatrice, great sharing of knowledge. Thank you. You are most welcome, and thank you to everybody who's joined in tonight, shared their tips, joined in the conversation, and had lots to talk about. It's been fantastic to hear from you, fantastic to see you, fantastic to chat from you. We'll be back again next Sunday, 6 p.m, with another live show, and of course the Monday night podcast will be out. And for supporting members, there'll be a podcast coming out later on this evening. Well, that's it for this week. We're going to close up and head on inside. Don't forget to put your tools away, and until next time, take care. Bye for now.